from the Charlotte Observer and that'sracing.com. Jim Utter joins us. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Hey, we are terrific. Beautiful weekend in Indianapolis last weekend, and unfortunately, an awful lot of people decided that they weren't going to hang around for a beautiful weekend in Indianapolis. They had other stuff to do. Man, has the luster completely gone out of this thing as far as the fans are concerned? We just heard from Jimmy Johnson, who said that he was just really thrilled to win the fourth one, and kissing the bricks was the greatest thing in the world, and then the aura and blah, 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 but it doesn't seem like anybody gives a damn anymore.
Well, I mean, there's two ways to look at it, of course. Whatever amount of people was there, I would say probably around 90,000 or so. Yeah. Is still going to rank among one of the larger crowds at NASCAR races when this season is all done. But when you look back at where this race was, say, even 5 to 7 years ago, there's a tremendous drop-off in the people who make the effort to come to the event. And to be quite honest, there's more to see on this weekend now than there ever was before. At one point, there was basically just a cup race there. Occasionally, they had an IROC event. And then this past weekend, they had Grand Am and Nationwide and Cup. So I don't know if it's the answer of adding more racing to the weekend doesn't seem to be making much difference. And I think it's somewhat of the luster has worn off to the people of that area. I just think that NASCAR is not such a big deal at the moment up there, and I don't know if it's ever going to get back to where it was before, but they need to keep working on it, because at some point, you know, even this crowd probably makes a nice profit for IMS, but at some point down the road, if it keeps going down, they'll have to decide whether it's still worth doing it.
We're talking to Jim Utter. Jim, do you think, did you get the feel that NASCAR and IMS feel that the support races were successful? Did they do enough, create enough excitement to continue that thing?
Well, I think that they felt that they went off well this past weekend. I think the problem with the nationwide race is it provides an opportunity for people in NASCAR competition to compete at a very historic, you know, speedway in which they would not otherwise, may never otherwise get the opportunity. The problem is that even if you were to say draw 50,000 people, which is pretty good for a nationwide, race, putting 50,000 people in a facility that seats 250,000 people is never going to look good on television. Right. So, you know, you have to kind of decide. I think what they're trying to do is to make the entire weekend more attractive so that to entice people to give the weekend another shot, something different maybe than what it used, you know, one race all by itself used to be a big draw. That's just not the case anymore. So I think they're going to give this a try again next year to see how it works. I think it raised the interest in some of these other series. I'm just not sure if it can raise the interest to carry over to Sunday.
Well, one of our Fast Lab questions, Jim, for today was who has a better chance of turning around their season, Edwards or Gordon, and making the chase? I know you wrote that between the two of them, you thought that Edwards' season was probably a little more disappointing than what Gordon's was. Do either one of these guys really have a legitimate shot of turning it around enough to find a way into the chase?
To be honest, that's what I was going to say. To be honest, I don't see if I was going to pick someone who had, of the two, that had a real possibility of winning 2 of the next 6 races, I would say maybe Jeff Gordon, just based on the fact that he's been very fast and very competitive all season and has been in the mix for wins and hasn't come up with any. Carl has not really been in the mix in many cases, for even being in the battle for wins. But to be quite honest, I don't think we're going to see either one of them in the chase.
Do you get I'm going to jump around here a little bit on you. Did you get a feeling from what you've heard and what you've been able to witness as far as manufacturers that there will be a Dodge team next year? I mean, all 4 makes have their cars approved now. But again, we go back to time is running out, and it may only be the 1st of August, but deals are done. Deals have been done. Is Dodge going to even be in this series next year?
I am pretty certain that Dodge will be in the series, and I think they'll have anywhere from 3 to 4 Cup teams. Wow. That's what it looks like, and I think we're fairly close to an announcement. I'd say within the next 2 to 3 weeks. But you're right, it is getting to be crunch time, and even for people who end up making this switch, there's not going to be a lot of time to get it ready and to make the transition. So I don't think that's Dodge's. I don't think this was Dodge's. It was never Dodge's preferred way, because I think they truly believed all along that Penske Racing would remain with them, and I think they were a little taken aback by when they decided they were going to move to Ford. So, but I don't think they're ready to give up on NASCAR yet. I think that they have a really nice-looking car for 2013, and the people that they have obviously a competitive product because, Brad Keselowski is going to be in the thick of the championship hunt. So I don't think they're ready to give up on NASCAR, and I would expect to see 3 to 4 Dodge Cup teams and probably about 1 to 2 nationwide teams next year.
Again, we're talking to Jim Utter from That'sRacing.com and the Charlotte Observer. Jim, any surprise teams in those 3 to 4 that are going to sign up with Dodge? Anybody you can let the cat out of the bag on?
Well, most people, know that I think Richard Petty Motorsports is probably going to end up going back to Dodge, and that would be 2 Cup teams, and they currently have a nationwide team with Michael Annett. I've heard some rumblings that Travis Pastrana, who runs this Dodge Dart in the new rally car series, may move his nationwide program over to Dodge full-time, which would be a second Dodge nationwide team. And then I think Michael Andretti's program was going to be the second Dodge team, but doesn't look like they're going to be able to get it off the ground in time for 2013. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Furniture Row Racing ended up making the change, because they're in a position where if they were to get manufacturer support, they're way down on the totem pole at Chevrolet.
Right.
If they were to get anything significant from Dodge, it would greatly enhance their program.
Jim, did you get a feeling for how close the Andretti deal was to being a viable deal?
Well, talking to some people connected to Dodge, I think they felt it was a viable deal. I can't speak, I don't know the ins and outs of the Andretti organization. I don't know how close they were to obtaining the other necessary sponsorship funding to make it happen, which is, I believe, the reason why it's not going to get off the ground in time. But I think the Dodge people certainly thought that it was, because there was a lot of talk about what that program was going to add, and I believe they had even gotten to the point of speaking to a couple drivers.
Huh.
That's an interesting theory. Can't go by a week, I guess, without talking about A.J. Allmendinger and what you think the future holds for him. He's he is set up to go into the Road to Recovery program. Is that enough to save his career in NASCAR?
I think that he could, if he completes it, return to NASCAR in some fashion, because other drivers have done that. One driver, specifically Shane Meal, did it more than once. But I don't know if
never a good thing.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll ever get back to the Cup side. What he wants to make out of a NASCAR career will probably be up to him. It all depends on what the situation of the sport is and sponsorship and so forth when he's at a point ready to return. But I think he's certainly talented enough that he could probably get an opportunity to race with somebody in trucks or nationwide if he wanted to go down that direction.
So who is the leading candidate for 2013 for the 22 in your mind?
Well, again, that kind of depends on what Penske decides to do. If they stick to a 2-car operation in Cup, I would say probably Sam Hornish Jr., provided that the rest of this, he does pretty well the rest of this season. He had his best finish Sunday at the Brickyard since he's been in the 22 car, with I believe it was 16th. And I, the more time he's in the car, I would suspect the more comfortable he would get. If not, then I would say it wouldn't surprise me if Penske went back and looked for another younger driver. Somebody, I know they just hired Ryan Blaney, but he's 18 and he's probably going to be doing a lot of nationwide. But it wouldn't surprise me. I know Trevor Bain's name came up when this ride originally opened, but they didn't work out. Wouldn't be surprised if he got another look. I would say Joey Logano was probably looking over there, but I think when all is said and done, he'll remain at Joe Gibbs Racing.
All right, we know, Jim, that it's verboten to cheer in the press box or in the media room, but was there a collective yes from all the NASCAR PR guys when Junior went into the Cup lead?
There might have been from some newspaper publishers or website owners, I think. Not in the media center, but certainly that was as much talk of after the race as Jimmy Johnson's win. But to be quite honest, since the chase has taken hold and become a little bit more familiar in NASCAR now, we've come to learn that the points lead before race 26 doesn't mean much of anything, other than the fact that you've got a pretty good team. Because unless you got wins when the 27th race starts, you could be the points leader. If you have no wins, you could be right back down at the bottom. So It's a nice feather in the cap, but as he pointed out after the race, they need more wins because that's what will separate you from the rest of the field when the chase starts.
All right, Jim, as always, we appreciate you taking some time and spending it with us. Have fun as the season winds down, and we'll talk with you again soon.
All right, thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. That's Jim Utter. You can read all of his stuff either on the Charlotte Observer or at that'sracing.com. Make sure you do that. Another one of the great guests that we have that are so well connected.
And if you're a NASCAR fan, you